Welcome back to Weightlifting as a Means for Learning Higher Principles. Today we're talking about adaptation and rest, and I'm super excited about it. So in the past, we've talked about the importance of having an adequate load and the differences between warm-up sets and working sets. And the reason that we talked about that was because in order to actually cause a stimulus or to undergo a stimulus sufficient to cause your body to grow, you have to cross a threshold of stress. And once you do cross that threshold, you undergo a process called adaptation. So, really, the goal of any exercise or lift is to cause adaptation to your body in order to make it change so that it's more capable. When you're adapted to something, that means that at a given load, you're not accruing additional systemic stress or fatigue. So, even though you are actively bearing the load, which is very key, you are not getting additional stress. And I want to call that state, for the purpose of this presentation, being at rest. So if you've adapted sufficiently that whatever you're going about and doing is not causing you systemic stress and fatigue, you are by definition at rest. And rest is an active state, right? It is not what you are doing if you are sitting doing nothing. Right? Rest is not a lack of activity. I would call that decay. And actually, if you decay, meaning if you do nothing while you're, air quotes, resting, that actually will decrease your level of adaptation and decrease your level of rest over time. So it's very important to maintain an active state. It's also binary and by degrees, and there's a lot of interesting principles that are like this. An important one that I'm not going to talk about so much in this presentation actually is righteousness and wickedness. You are either righteous or you are wicked, and then depending on which you are either a little bit righteous or very righteous or somewhere in between. Being in a state of rest is the same way. Right? So you are either in a state of rest or you are not. And if you are in a state of rest, you might be in just you might have a small adaptation. And so there are certain tasks you can go through without accruing additional stress. But as soon as something bigger comes along, well, you're right back into that stressful state and accruing more adaptations. So it's really important to understand that the capacity that you have to remain at rest is individual to everybody. And I have a bullet here that says one man's rest is another man's stress. And I'd really encourage everybody to watch a video that I'll link in the description of Magnus Mitbo and Christian Blumenfeld talking about VO2 max and going through a day. So Magnus is a fitness influencer. He does primarily rock climbing type activities. And he's a professional, is really, really good, obviously in amazing shape, because rock climbing is super difficult. And he goes and spends a day with Christian Blumenfeld, who is like the world's most fit man, basically, I think is what the video is called. And they talk about VO2 max in that, which, if you don't know what that is, the VO2 max measurement is basically a measurement of how efficient your body is at using oxygen. So the higher your VO2 max is, the more strenuous activity you have to do in order to get enough oxygen, or I guess the more strenuous activity you can undertake while breathing less and having your heart work less hard. So the higher it is, the healthier you are, basically. And Christian has the highest VO2 max ever recorded, and he takes Magnus on a day with him of training, and despite Magnus being super in good shape and all this stuff, he just completely obliterates him in all things, and it's super interesting to watch. He does things like they run 27 kilometers up a mountain, and Christian does that while maintaining a heart rate in like the 120s and without breaking, well, he breaks a sweat, but he doesn't even look tired when he's done. Magnus makes that about 3 kilometers up that high and then has to call it quits. And it's let out that, during when they're discussing it, that on Christians' rest days, so the days that he's actively in recovery, he runs 12 kilometers and swims 4 kilometers, which is a workout that would crush almost everybody on earth, but certainly most normal people. So you can be in an extremely high state of rest, which means that your ability to do things and not be overcome has increased quite a bit. The first principle I want to discuss spiritually with this idea is that you do not enter into a state of rest by avoiding work. It's quite the opposite. Slothfulness casteth into a deep sleep, and an idle soul shall suffer hunger. This is Proverbs 19:15. And being slothful and being idle are actually what most people in the world would describe as being restful. They're in a state of relaxation. And many people seek to get away from having to do work in order to alleviate the pain or the suffering or the negative feelings that they have. And the truth is that idle souls suffer hunger. And this is true physically, as in I didn't farm enough wheat and now I'm hungry in the winter. But it's also true spiritually, as in I'm not actively seeking to develop characteristics of Jesus Christ that I need in order to overcome the spiritual and mental challenges that I'm going to face on a day-to-day basis. So if you're presented with a situation, for example, perhaps you have difficult children or a difficult child, and you find yourself reacting in a way that makes your conscience upset. Maybe you're getting too angry, maybe you're yelling, or maybe you're just avoiding that child and not doing what you should be. The way to get relief from those negative experiences is not to run away from them. And it's not to try to make everybody else change in order to make the situation easier. That does nothing for you. The correct way to overcome a situation like that is to find the character of Christ that you need to develop that will allow you to maintain your peace and composure in face of a situation like that. And the only way to do that is to do the best that you currently know how to do and then petition him to teach you more. So I have here D&C section 4. It says, "Therefore, O you that embark in the service of God, see that you serve him with all your heart, might, mind, and strength, that you may stand blameless before God at the last day." And notice just how active this language is at all times, right? You are serving him. See that you serve him with all your heart, all your might, and your mind, and your strength. And then the result of that is not laying down and going to sleep. It's standing blameless. Standing is active. And blameless means that you are in a situation where blame could have been administered or judgment is there, and you were not found wanting, but you were found blameless. God's justice was in favor of you because of how you approach that. Now, I did want to point out that it's very interesting that both might and strength are listed in this verse, and I wanted to differentiate between those two things, because might you can think of as your ability or your capacity to act, right? These are the things that you do. These are the things that you go and do, the commandments that you keep, the good things, the good works that you do. Your strength is your capacity to endure. It's your capacity to not be acted upon, as it would say in Second Nephi 2, I think, right? The greater your capacity is to endure, the greater your capacity is to not be acted upon. In other words, you cannot lose your composure in that situation that I mentioned with your kid. Not because of some willpower issue, but because you have gained the strength requisite to endure a situation like that and become blameless. And the only way to do that is by continuously stretching with all your heart and your strength, or I guess with all your might and your strength, to cause that adaptation to happen. Next principle I want to talk about is where rest does come from. It comes from increasing your strength. This is a critical story from the Book of Mormon in Mosiah 24. This is the people of Alma who have fled from wicked King Noah, and they've been enslaved by the Lamanites. And they're petitioning the Lord for help. And he says to them, "And I will ease the burdens which are put upon your shoulders, that even you cannot feel them upon your backs, even while you are in bondage. And this will I do, that you may stand as a witness for me hereafter, that you may know that of a surety that I, the Lord God, do visit my people in their afflictions. And now it came to pass that the burdens which were laid upon Alma and his brethren were made light. Yea, the Lord did strengthen them, that they could bear up their burdens with ease. And they did submit cheerfully and with patience to all the will of the Lord." Now, I want you to notice how they were able to be made strong, right? How did the Lord ease their burdens? He didn't tie a bunch of balloons, invisible spiritual angel balloons, on top of their burdens so that they could not feel them that way. His method of making them stronger, or making them to be able to bear them, was to strengthen them. He caused them to get stronger. He helped them get stronger, and that they could bear their burdens with ease. So they no longer had to worry about the challenges that they were currently facing, because they had become more than adequate. Their adaptation had become such that they remained in a state of rest, even while meeting their challenges. And this is so much better. Like, why did he do it this way? They got to keep the strength, right? It doesn't say after the story that the Lord took away the strength that he gave those people and that they were no longer able to bear their burdens. They kept the strength. And the only reason that they were able to get that strength was because they were in that situation and they turned to him appropriately. So that is what we need to do. And this story is very well contrasted in this book by the people of Lemhi, who are in an extremely similar situation. And they did not turn to the Lord in the right way and in the same way and with the same quickness that Alma's peoples did. And if you go back and read in the story of Limhi's people, you will see that one of the main differences is that the Lord softened the hearts of the Lamanites in order to help Limhi's people. He did not strengthen Limhi's people. And so not only did he just remove the trial from them, they did not get the additional benefit of the strength that they gained. And I cannot overemphasize enough that having true rest comes from increasing your adaptation and your capacity such that the same trials that you're beset with no longer are felt by you. So what does this teach us about the greater principle of entering into the rest of the Lord? Right? The rest of the Lord is a scriptural phrase that you'll see throughout the scriptures. It's a very deep topic, and you can look a lot into it and spend quite some time studying it. But I want you to think through the physical applications that we talked about in some of these scriptures. What is the intensity and volume in your lives that's requiring adaptation in order to overcome. These are the things that are good that you know to do that you're not doing. And it's also the evil that you're aware of, either in yourself or in the world, that you have not been able to overcome. And what does it mean to overcome the evil that you're aware of? It means that at whatever increment of growth you're currently at, there is nothing that could happen to you that would rob you of your peace, rob you of the joy that you have, and cause you to choose to cross the line and sin. So, if you're in a state of complete competence, if you've gained the principles of the Lord and have become those principles that you know, such that whatever besets you in your life currently does not overcome you, you are in the rest of the Lord. And it's, again, very important to understand that this is an active state. You are doing everything that you normally would be doing. In fact, you're doing the best version of what you could imagine at this point in your life and this point in your growth. And you're actually doing more than other people who are not in the rest of the Lord at that given level. So when does this occur? Okay, the rest of the Lord is not an after this life thing. Well, it is an after this life thing, but it also is an immortality thing. You can enter into his rest in mortality and have peace of conscience and have enough trust in him that you are not overcome by the circumstances in life that come at you. And then, of course, every once in a while, and actually depending on your own desires and seeking to become closer to the Lord, he will confront you with something that you didn't know about before that induces some of that stress and some of that fatigue. And you have the opportunity right then to learn that principle that you weren't aware of now, but now you are, and become it. And if you do that, then you maintain that state just as at a greater state. And you increase your peace, and you increase your joy, and you increase your capacity to do good for other people. And so remember, it's binary, but it's also by degrees. So I think that's the end of my thoughts for this one. But I testify to you that regardless of whatever the circumstances are that you're facing in your life, no matter how challenging they seem, and no matter how many times you've previously been overcome by them, that if you seek the Lord and seek to learn from him how to overcome the challenge, not just to have it removed from you, that is not helpful. Okay, that does not mean that it can't come back. But if you seek to become stronger, then you will get to a place where the things which easily beset you before no longer do so. And you will enter into that state of rest.